Hey guys, welcome to today's video. This is Martin from martinmixing.com, and yes, I am back from quite a long time away, and I have decided to do a video series especially focusing on drums. I hear a lot of mixes that I receive that have a lot of problems with drums, so in this following series I want to focus on how to make this instrument sound great on various different levels. In this part 1 of this series we'll be focusing specifically on the Logic Drum Designer or the Logic Drummer, however you want to call it, and I'll show you with a few basic steps how you can make this kit sound really great in your mix. Now, many times I hear that drums are way too over-processed and way too over-mixed. I think many people just try to do a bit too much and get a bit too carried away, which is somewhat understandable because we all like using a lot of fancy and cool plugins, and we have been kind of conditioned to think that we have to use compression and EQ and all of these other things in everything and on all tracks and in all mixes at all times, which I think is completely wrong, of course. So I will show you in this video how you can make the Logic Drummer sound really great with a few simple steps for various different genres. Before we get started, let me also say that there is this belief that recorded drums are always better than programmed drums. I think nothing could be further from the truth. Yes, recorded drums are great, and recording drums is one of my passions. I really like recording amazing sounding drums in great studios. But as you can hear already, I use the word amazing twice in that sentence, which means that if you have a bad drum kit with a bad drummer in a bad studio with bad microphones and so on, you will definitely not get a good sound, and it will definitely not sound better than a well-programmed kit that you could get out of Logic or any other software, be it Addictive Drums or Steven Slate or whichever it is, really. So personally I think that yes, if you have the money and if you have the access to go into a good studio with a good drummer, a good kit, a good engineer, so you have all of these pieces worked out and you have all of these pieces kind of working together in a nice way, then you can get really amazing results, and it's probably easier and faster, to be honest, to record drums with a real drummer instead of putting in MIDI notes. I personally hate that. I'm really not good with fidgeting with these little things and notes. It just annoys me, to be honest. However, if you don't have some or any of these ingredients, you don't have the good drummer, you don't have the good drum kit, you don't have the good mics, you don't have the good room, then it is better to just program it or just use the Logic Drummer and tell it what to do. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So as you can see, I have two different patches made up here. We'll be working on a rock kit and a softer kind of kit. In the rock kit, I'm just using the so-called preset. I haven't really changed it because I thought it just sounded really great from the get-go. So I'll be showing you how you can make this sound great with only 2 plugins. So if you're a composer, a producer who wants to make demos and who wants to make good sounding songs for just yourself, for your own enjoyment, to maybe replace later on or to show to producers or composers or musicians, then this is something you can really do, and you don't have to go much deeper, because I think the more you mix these kind of things, the worse it tends to become unless you really know how to do it. And then in the second kit, I think I have the same kit setup, but we have used a softer setting, a softer playing style, and I'll be treating it differently just to get a kind of more jazzy, bluesy kind of vibe. So I have a simple and loud setting set off. It's a 1/2-5, so I guess it's kind of a skate punk kind of playing that we should be expecting. So let's just hear what it sounds like. Okay, so to me, I'm really blown away by this, to be honest. This sounds like a really well-recorded kit. It's played well, there is even dynamics to it. It doesn't even sound machine-like, to be honest. The samples are great. Everything about this is really good. So, if you have no deeper knowledge, I would say take this, record your bass, your guitar, your synth, pan it around, do a little bit of volume adjusting, and you are done. You really don't have to do a lot more, because this already sounds great. I mean, 5 or 10 years ago, it would have been impossible to get such a good sound out of any software, to be honest. And we have this built in into Logic for $199. I mean, what more do we want, honestly? This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. However, if you do want to do a bit more to it, let's say if you want to take this to a rocky kind of area, then there's a few things we can do. So let's have a look at what I recommend, what I suggest. Usually drums have this issue of having a bit of mud built up and a little bit of harshness in the cymbals. So let's have a look at these. I'm going to turn all of these off. Let's turn the low cut off as well. So first I noticed that there's a little bit of mud in the low mid. So I have used a little bit of an attenuation there. Let's hear it. So just by taking this out, we have created a lot more clarity in this kit. And this is important because a lot of your guitars and a lot of your basses will be living within this range. So it's important to reduce it, and it will be compensated for by other instruments further down the line. Then I usually apply a low cut, like quite gentle, around 30 Hz, just to keep it nice and tight and so that it doesn't build up in the master bus later on. You can leave it or not, it's completely fine. However, I also heard a little bit of harshness, so let's have a look at that. So this is quite common again. It has to do with the way that these cymbals resonate. They are usually similar sizes and similar proportions, so they will have some resonances that occur between the 4 and 5.5 kilohertz range usually. And we can hear this being built up. So this drum kit was recorded really naturally, I think specifically to allow you a little bit of flexibility later on in processing. So I would take this out as well. And again, we have created a bit more clarity and a somewhat smoother sound. Now, to be honest, the top of this sounds great. I don't want to do any treble boosting, and I don't really hear any other issues in the mid-range as well. Yes, I did experiment a little bit with taking out this 3K and a little bit with the 2K as well, but ultimately I didn't find it to be necessary. Let's have a quick listen. So as you can see, none of these extreme settings make sense. And my approach to EQ is in general to preserve the natural tone of the instrument, the way it was recorded. Our job as mixers is not to modify things in an extreme way. We want to preserve what was recorded as best as we can and just improve it, augment it, clean it up if necessary. So I don't want to change the character of this kit at all. I want to preserve the sound as it is. Just take out what I think are, the bad stuff. Basically, reduce the bad stuff, boost the good stuff. That's my philosophy. And just to give it a bit more oomph, you can boost a little bit of bass here around 75 Hertz. And that's your drum sound done. So let's check before and after. So yes, this sounds a lot cleaner, a lot more balanced, and a lot more neutral, and we have a bit more punch coming from the lows as well, which is very welcome. So now for a rock sound, of course, you want a bit more power. So let's see what we can do with compression here. So for this, you can copy these settings basically. I have chosen the FAT, which is the 1176 kind of setting, of course. Auto gain off, auto release, yes, but maybe no, doesn't really matter too much. And we'll be using quite moderate settings here. Let's just see what we can do. Okay, so again, very basic settings, very simple stuff, all stock, a few tweaks, and we have achieved a lot punchier, a much more energetic sound. The kick and the snare punch through a lot more. We can hear a bit more of the room, which I think is a bit too much, but I haven't found any way to attenuate it in the drum kit. But that's what it is, you know, it's quite basic, it's still very, very good. So we can roll with that. Alternatively, so this is just something I would keep as it is. Alternatively, we can also go a bit heavier with a more aggressive setting and mix it in parallel if we want to. The good thing about it is that we can then automate the mix knob and have less and more aggressive sound in different parts of the mix. So let's just try this more aggressive setting as well. So this is super duper duper aggressive now, but of course on its own this is basically useless. So this is not how we hear drums, this is not how drums would sound like. So with the mix button, we'll change the dry-wet ratio of this setting. So this is really cool, and again I'll show you what we can do. We can take this down to 30% for instance, so basically barely audible, and then crank it up a bit more in what would be the chorus later on. So let's have a listen. I'll turn this up, you will see it on the screen from this section where we are here. Let's say this first bit is the verse and this is our chorus. Let's just see what we can do. So this is it. This is one way to mix your rock drums using the Logic Drummer. Again, we have two plugins here, a little bit of EQ, a little bit of compression, no reverb, no nothing. We don't need anything else. This is perfect as it is. If you're an entry-level kind of producer, arranger, music maker, then just use this and then you can later ask a professional drummer or drum programmer to replace these drums with something a bit more serious. But I think this is already really good. So we can definitely even stick with this for a song. And you can, you know, manage or change the way the drummer plays throughout your entire song. So now let's have a look at a somewhat more subtle, a somewhat more soft setting. So for this I have gone soft and simple. Again, this is kind of a bluesy vibe, and let's just see what we can do. So for this I'm going for a warmer sound, so you can see the EQ settings here. I'm just gonna turn it on just to see what we achieve. So here we had a little bit of a nasal tone. Since it's quite smooth and quite dark, you wanted to boost a little bit of top. So first what I did is I again reduced the mud in the lows. But then for a warmer sound, I boosted really widely, a little bit around 116. So as you can see, this is affecting the 300 as well as the 50, but we wanted a somewhat warmer sound for this. And of course this boost then also makes this issue here at 200 worse, so this is why we had to compensate for that here. And then to balance this out, otherwise it's a bit too dark, I've boosted a little bit of the super highs to get the cymbals nice and present. Let's just check it out. And honestly, that's it. As I was preparing this video, I was playing around a little bit with compression, but it doesn't need any compression. It is tight, it is groovy, it is good as it is. So if you're in the softer blues, jazz, these kind of genres, or some soft pop, then this is perfect as it is, and it will give you plenty of room and plenty of space to put in other instruments and to build your arrangement around it. So this wraps up this entry-level video for today. As you can see, just with the Logic Drummer and just with a few tweaks, we can achieve quite different sounds, and I think the sky is the limit, to be honest. If you don't really know what you're doing and you just want to compose, arrange, to be handed over to other people or to showcase your talents to TV companies or whatever, then this is really a great way to demo your drums and to demo your music. And even for more serious work, this is good, to be honest. Like, this sounds very, very good. This would not have been possible just 5-10 years ago. So this is great as it is. My goal is to keep it very simple in these kind of settings. I think using too much processing on these drums would just be detrimental. I think it would damage it. I think the recording is great, the sampling is great, everything is great here, so we don't have to use a lot of EQ and a lot of compression. And indeed, most of the songs that I receive to review have too much compression and too much EQ, just completely destroying the sound. So keep it simple and you'll have much better results. Okay, so I hope you liked this video. Let me know in the comments below if you like this kind of content and if you're excited about the upcoming videos where you do a bit more serious work with recorded and sampled drums with more serious software. Please do like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching this on my Facebook group, great to have you. And I'll be seeing you in the next video, and until then, happy mixing, take it easy, bye bye.